Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a very, very special edition of the StudioDork podcast. My name is Gary, and also with me is
Cameron.
And get ready to listen to some very interesting interview.
Yeah, we actually you went sexy on that. It's weird. But yeah, so our friend Martin from school, the guy we used to go to school with, he actually had to he needed to interview designers.
He did.
And so we did this interview with him, and we decided to record it.
Yeah.
You have to remember his audio is a little bit wonky.
We actually recorded on Skype, so there was some little tiny issues with the audio, but our very famous music compositor and DJ extraordinaire and
Are we talking about the
and podcast master mixer
Oh,
Cameron
yeah,
over
totally.
here
Mixmaster C, it's cool.
was able to adjust some stuff on there to make that almost not as noticeable as it normally would have been, but
Yeah.
it was recorded a little bit worse there.
Yeah, we did what we could. And we were also recording it on two devices, and one of the devices kind of conked out in the middle, and so we had to switch to the other one. So the audio quality changes between those, but you're not really going to notice. It's just, I figured,
Yeah.
And you hear a microwave going on because we're cooking food. So.
Food is good. It's very important to eat. So.
But yeah, so get ready to listen to
some interesting interviews.
Stuffs,
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Just, living. Life.
Lifestyle.
The life of life, not the game of life.
Sweet.
So I heard you have some questions about some stuff.
Yeah, I have a project where I have to ask you some questions to a designer. You're the director of StudioDork, right?
We do run StudioDork, both of us.
Yeah.
So what are you in charge on StudioDork? What do you do?
Basically, I'm doing the design for what it's actually going to look like, and so the actual user experience, and I take care of the brushes and the textures. Yeah, we take a lot of different pictures, so we have a lot of assets ready for that. But yeah, basically take care of the brushes and the textures, and hand that off to Cameron, and he usually writes articles about how we actually got to the brushes and texture part.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can talk about inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, Gary just does all the packaging basically. He just packages everything together. We both go out and we collect assets and we just kind of do all that. And then, I hunt down all the daily inspirations and post up everything that goes on the site. And then we both participate in our podcasts, and we've been doing some video stuff recently. And yeah, we both kind of just try to divvy it up 50-50 and kind of just work it out and get it out to the site pretty much.
But yeah, so Cameron does all the inspirations pretty much. He goes and searches for all the images, goes on all the other sites and tries to find the newest and the freshest stuff. Similar to Abazito's inspiration, that other website. How they have a daily inspiration, we have a similar thing like that. But the unique thing with ours is he gets really the freshest, newest stuff. So he tries to find stuff that's really almost no one else has. Even though you'll still probably find it on other sites, but it's really. You won't get 1,000 things. You'll get maybe 20 or 30 or whatever different things, but it's all unique. It's all really he really tries to search for that stuff, and then and does all the writings as well. So he does all the articles whenever we do stuff. We both talk about it and stuff like that, but he pretty much takes care of all the writing. That's obviously his strength. He's a good writer and stuff. And then like I said, I do all the visual. We're working on we have the StudioDork site, which we just put up really, really fast that time right before we finished school. We just wanted to have something up.
We have a new version coming out.
We have a new version coming out, and I almost finished it. I'm at 95% done with it, but we've been working on it for a really long time, just because I want it to be a certain way. I want it to be exactly how I visualize it. So pretty much have that done, and I'm going to hand that off to the developer, and hopefully the developer can satisfy all our needs. We have all these things that we want to have, smooth scrolling when it goes all the way up, and when people leave comments, it leaves the comments in real time right away without taking them to another page. And there'll be some HTML5 in there as well, incorporated with the dynamics of the site, and just a bunch of other little ideas. We have a little menu, pop-out menu. That's gonna come out, and a bunch of what?
It's just you just tell.
Oh yeah, my bad. Oh, should we not tell people that?
No, that's cool.
Don't talk.
It's just very long.
Oh yeah, my bad. All right. Yeah. So just stay tuned, guys. It's gonna be good stuff. StudioDork.com.
How many hours a day do you guys take to work on StudioDork?
I try to do at least 3 hours if I have to, so it's probably something around 20 hours a week, if that, it's kind of whatever we get. Like when we do the podcast, I try to cut the podcast within the next couple days of the same thing. Or when we do daily inspirations, that's always usually takes me like a half an hour to an hour to do. So it varies by day depending on what we have to do.
Inspirations, he basically does that every single day, and it's like more of a secondary thing because we have our main jobs that we actually get income so we can buy food and not starve to death and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then StudioDork is a more of a secondary thing because we're not really making any income from that, but it's just something that we always wanted to do, to give back, because we've always used the other design websites and all that stuff, and everything's like free there. You have free inspirations, free brushes, textures, you modify, do whatever you want. So we wanted to give back to that, and at the same time, we're able to almost like kind of make our own projects. We can do whatever we want. Like in our job where we're making our income, we don't get to decide, hey, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. It's like we're given something, we have to do something. We don't get to decide what we don't. But here it's like we're in control, we're running the show, so we get to do what we want. So we like that. It's a good mix to have that. So yeah.
So what you guys did is like you guys put like a bunch of like websites together, like the ones we go on. But now you could look at inspirations and then download brushes and download backgrounds. Is there any other website like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there like that. And
just like yours, where you could like get inspired and download and.
There's a bunch of them. Like if you go to StudioDork.com, you can go on there's like a little friends section on the right side, and there's a bunch of other sites similar to ours.
Yeah. I mean, StudioDork was inspired by Abazito and like Inspire First and a lot of places like that. And I don't pull from Abazito most of the time when I do daily inspirations, but there are some where I'll pull from other design blogs because they do tend to find some that like I can't find in other places, So I mean, we kind of share between all of us as far as I know.
Yeah.
Do you guys plan to make money in the future with your website?
Yeah, that'd be cool if like the kind of the goal is just for it to have a certain look, and then for it to have like a certain environment where people can go and feel comfortable and just like almost hang out, like just a cool spot to hang out and look at stuff.
Yeah. And
then when we get a certain amount of traffic, we'll start pumping up via Twitter and Facebook and a bunch of social stuff to get a bigger audience. And then after that happens, we'll have such a large audience that we can start having banners and other ways of making income.
Yeah, and the income, I think, to start off with, what we really want is we just want it to just pay for this, like the site to pay for itself first off.
Like
and
the
then
hosting and stuff.
We're not really too worried about making like actual like our income off of it yet. Eventually down the road, it might be cool if it stays that way, but you gotta make a lot of income to do that. So.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like our journal. Like on the podcast, we'll talk about like what we're going through and like what we're like the podcast that we're recording. We've done a few, but we haven't released them yet. But that should be out soon.
Should be out in like a week or two.
Yeah, so now it really has to be out. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But like, it's kind of like our journal. We talk about stuff. We almost like the stuff we would normally talk about, but we're just recording it. And just so people see, like, hey, I go through that too. Interesting, so people could connect and see. And we throw our personalities in there as well, and I don't know, just hopefully connect to people and maybe get a larger audience. But yeah, our main idea is not really to make a profit from that, but eventually that'll be cool. Money's always good. You can buy more camera equipment and a bunch of other cool dorky stuff or whatever. So,
are you guys something I'm looking forward is tutorials on there? Are you guys gonna do that?
On the what? Say it again.
He's on the site. So
tutorials.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're still going through a process of figuring out how to do that, the best way to do that, because a lot of our screen recording software are running into some lag issues and stuff like that, so we're trying to fix a lot of issues like that. Yeah, I mean, and also we're looking for feedback from people, like what they really want to see for tutorials. Like, we have ideas of what we would want to do, but we want to see what other people kind of want as well. So.
Yeah. Exactly. So like if there's any tutorials or anything like that you would want us to do, or if you know the people, there's some interested stuff to see, like whether it's icon design, whether it's some Photoshop techniques or whatever, we can we're just asking for requests and we'll take care of that pretty much. I know for the tutorials we basically record them and we'll take maybe an hour or two, however long it takes to do it, and then we speed it up like 500 to 1,000%, so it's way faster. You don't really waste time. You just see the techniques, like you see the fundamentals or whatever, how to get to what you're trying to accomplish. So that's basically that. We just both did. Can we talk about that? I think we could, right?
Yeah, we can.
We just did it like a
we've got a
top secret.
It's basically like we've got this new we did this project where we created textures out of a bunch of cool things in our house, and we've filmed a bunch of it, and then we decided that those textures we were going to use in a process to show people kind of how we use them. And so we just both, I think like last night I finished mine and he finished his yesterday.
Yeah.
So we actually were cutting a bunch of videos together for this new thing that's going to come out. It's like a collection of textures, basically.
Specifically, this was done for egg shells. Like we broke them up in little pieces and started taking high res photos of eggshells, and we made a typography out of the eggshells, capital letters A through Z. You know, all the alphabet. Yeah. So 26 letters A through Z, and then we have that made out of eggshells, and we basically use that to show like what they could be used for, and we would like to see feedback from people what they would use it for. And both of us recorded a couple things, so we'll show you. We're actually going to do like a little interview in the process. There's going to be all this stuff, like the whole video, so it should be pretty interesting.
Sounds fun, dude. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
All that stuff is going to be on StudioDork.com. But that, remember, all this stuff, this is just our own thing, but our actual jobs, that's a whole nother thing. That's a different thing. We do a lot of other stuff as well, and like I have a lot of clients as well that I do a bunch of other stuff for. That's a whole nother thing. But so like to try to squeeze everything in, it's kind of a little bit of a juggle trying to figure out, and you want to figure out what priority. And it's very important to also save a little bit of time for resting too. Mm-hmm. So.
Definitely, yeah.
You want to have some time to rest, so sometimes you turn into a workaholic, and you're actually trying to like work harder to accomplish more things, but you're doing a worse job. Like multitasking is actually sometimes a bad thing, in my opinion, because you're doing multiple things and you're lagging on some other things. So it's better to concentrate on one thing at a time. But that's another subject. We'll talk about that in a different thing.
How long have you guys been in your position?
Oh, I've been a designer for like 11 years. I've been doing design, graphic design, web design for like 10, 11 years, something like that, since 2000, early 2000. But the SEO company that I work at, I've been there right after I finished school. The first week I came back to LA, and this something like like 8 or 9 months, something like that. But I like it there. The environment.
Hasn't it been like a year?
I don't think so.
No, we graduated in March. So
finished school in March, and right away I came. I'm interviewed with a bunch of different companies, and that one just seemed correct, like a good fit for me. It was not too far from where we live and stuff, and just worked out. It just worked out pretty good. The environment is really good, and the boss is really good. The owner of the company, and I get a variety of different work, so I like that. Rather than being stuck with one type of thing, okay, you're gonna be doing papers the whole time and nothing but paper stuff or whatever. I do different stuff. Sometimes it's like plumber stuff. Sometimes it's lawyer stuff. Is different genres, different types of clients, and they have different types of needs. I like that, so it's not always the same thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've been working there for about 6 months. And yeah, it's a big variety as well in my job. The thing that when I first got in there, they hired me, they said, because I was enthusiastic to learn different programs. And I actually applied for a Flash position originally, and I didn't really know Flash, so I spent like the 3 days before my interview trying to learn Flash. Basically, it was over a weekend. And then when I went in, I had some new Flash stuff on my site, and I guess they saw that I was excited to learn. And so right when I started learning, they had me sit down with one of the Flash guys, and they kind of taught me ActionScript and stuff. And so I do a lot more Flash than I used to. So
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And then he gets to work with a lot of higher profile things, like a bunch of like movie stuff and different things. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's totally cool. I mean, yeah, I get to work with some of the best designers like out there, so it's cool.
It's awesome, dude. So the homework assignments we have at AI, are they any similar to the you guys are doing right now?
There was some similar stuff as far as just how they would make you go through the process. Mm-hmm. So we do that, or I do that in the real world sometimes. Try to go through the process, and by the process I mean you do your research about whatever you're working on, do sketching, all that stuff. But there are some times when you don't have too much time. You're very like limited on time, and you have to skip some of the steps. So you figure out what the most priority. Basically, how they say when you know all the rules and you have to do it a certain way, and you get to a certain level of knowing the rules, you can break some of the rules to figure out what's more necessary. And at school, it's always really, like I always said, it's always what you put into it. You can get the worst assignment ever and just modify it to make it work to your benefit somehow. Like you get a crappy assignment, you modify it into something that you can use towards either your portfolio or something that will teach you to do some other future assignments better. So you always it's always what you put into it, and vice versa. You can get the coolest assignment ever to get all the stuff out of it, but you can just like not really care about it and do some whack stuff or whatever. So it's really what you put into it. So it's really all has to do about what you do.
But I think also like in school, you really are only really answering to, like, you can make a design specifically for a client, and that could be your teacher. and so you only really have that one client. At my job, particularly, there's basically I have an art director that I have to please, and then on top of that, he has to please a client. So like there will be a lot of times where my art director will be cool with what I made, but then he sends it to the client, and the client hates it. So then we all of a sudden they send it back, and then the art director has to change his thinking of how he thinks, and then all of a sudden I have to too. So I kind of have to please two people, and then you have to please like Wheel of Fortune is a perfect example. We do all the Wheel of Fortune stuff, and Wheel of Fortune, their client, like the client is a lot older, and so they have like a different thinking of how they want everything done. So they expect like you to work on a banner all day, but a banner should only take you like maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. And so basically like they'll send you a banner to get done, and then they'll send back tons of revisions just because they can, because they expect you to be there for the entire day, when in reality you're only really working on it for an hour. So there's a lot of changes for like an older clientele. So I don't know, stuff like that.
So what's your like time limit when you get a project from start to finish? How long
that's a good
they
question.
usually give you?
That is a really good question.
Yeah, that like Cameron just said, it kind of depends and varies on. So you figure out sometimes. Obviously, you try to do things. You try to balance it. You try to give a certain amount of quality and a certain amount of time. So it's all a balancing act. You got to figure out how much time you have, and if you have a certain amount of time, you're like, okay, I have 5 hours to do this. Cool. Then I have a little bit more time to add some more visual elements, or to have some more refining, finishing touches and all that stuff. So it all has to do with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, give me an example of like how long it takes you to do like a site.
Okay, like a normal website layout.
How many pages?
If let's say like 8 pages or something. Let's say it's like a WordPress design, usually with like WordPress or like a content management type of system, or like a blog, whatever. Usually the first page you do that. Usually that could take anywhere from half a day to a day and a half. So from 4 hours to like, I don't know,
12 hours.
to like 12 hours, something like that. Good math. And depending on how complex it is, but you get that page. I'm talking about going through all the steps, and you have a few different versions, and you've already tried a bunch of little things, and you have a sidebar and all that stuff. So you do the first page, and then the rest of the internal pages, usually in a situation like that, will be all similar.
Yeah.
And then usually like 2 to 3 days for something like that, for like or maybe like 2 days, something around that time frame. But then you give it to the client, and they'll usually have some revisions, and they might want to change a few things, so you give it back, and then you work on it for a few more hours, and there might be a couple more revisions. So that's usually how that works. But in the beginning, you always want to give them like a design brief. You want to find out as much information as possible. You want to find out things about it that they don't even know they want. You know what I mean? You want to ask about their competition, what they want it to look like, what they don't want it to look like, the type of color schemes they like, the value of the site. It could be $1, it could be $1 million. So you want to know like what type of demographic you're going after, and a bunch of other things. But I'm just mentioning some of them.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what you do more. You do a lot more of that. So that's a lot longer work.
Some of it.
At my work, there's a lot more variety since I'm a production artist. I do a lot of creative, but I also do a lot of production work as well. And the production work, it depends on the property. There will be some days I'll go in and I'll work on 8 different properties, and I'll have a half an hour on each thing, and they're just revisions on banners. And sometimes I'll go in and there will be 100 banners I'll have to do for one property, and that will take me all day. So it kind of depends, like the work. It depends on the workload, really. Basically, like Gary said. So.
Yeah, and by production work, you mean you'll get stuff that's already done, right? And then you just have to modify it. You have to move it around, lay it out, use your abilities to be able to lay stuff out and all that stuff.
No, yeah. So like a good example is Wheel of Fortune, just because like they have so many revisions, and sometimes they won't give us feedback for a couple days. So I'll do a bunch of banners one day, and then I'll get put on a project like the Academy Awards site that I'm working on right now, where that one it takes me 4 days to do. So they give me 4 days to do it. So since I'm on that project now, someone else is gonna have to pick up where the revisions for the Wheel of Fortune is. So it's kind of just all over the place, you know.
So in a situation like that, usually, like, say Cameron's working with somebody else, and he's going to hand off his files. He has to save his file in a way, you know, like, say he's working in Photoshop, he has to name all his folders, whatever, left side, right side, logo, whatever, just so it's more, so the person that's working on next, so it's less time consuming for them to work on stuff. So you probably call your files accordingly and all that stuff.
Exactly. So then when they get it, they're doing the production work at that point, just taking my layout, and then they're like, okay, well, they wanted this change, this bigger, this smaller, you know, this maybe a different color. So it's just
And sometimes
already made.
Sometimes you'll get files from other people that won't have the names. Like, well, where's this? Where's that? You got to look for stuff. And sometimes you will get stuff from people that have all the right naming convention. And okay, it's so easy. I can find this, I can that, and it makes your job easier because people, you know, follow the steps and they call their folders and they call their layers of what it is. This is a typography for the right side. This is for the header. This is for the footer or whatever. You know, so you're able to find all this stuff. That's important to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many hours a day are you working?
Let's see. So like for myself, I usually, it's like an 8-hour day. My full-time job, I'm usually there like 3 to 5 days. So sometimes I'll be less than 5 days, depending on if I have more client work. They're very flexible, like as far as that place. Like I'm able to do whatever. If I have clients, I'm able to work for my clients from my home studio or whatever. Or but then no matter what, even after, so like for example, like on my typical Monday, I'll go to work from 9 to 5:30, then I will go to the gym, work out for like about an hour and a half, then I know extra stuff. After the gym, I get back home, and that's the day that I usually work on brushes. Usually on Mondays, brushes and textures. So I'll work on that for a few hours, and then usually around 9 or 10 o'clock, I'll come out and then watch Netflix for an hour or two. So Mondays is like one of my busiest days. And then other client work. Usually after work, I'll work on client work in the nighttime, or on the weekends. Sometimes weekends, I really try to leave those for just like whatever. Sometimes we'll go and like shoot textures and brushes to be prepared for all that stuff, and just have a bunch of assets for future things. Or sometimes we'll record some stuff, and we're probably gonna start recording more stuff. Also on Tuesdays we do the podcast. We've been doing the podcast. We might switch them up. But record. But I like keeping on Tuesday for now, and that's usually the time frame. And then you too, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, except for my busy days are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Friday. Because since we're starting the podcast, on Tuesday I have to get 2 posts out, and then Wednesday I have to get 2 posts out: the texture and the daily inspiration, and then the brush and the daily inspiration. And then on Fridays I try to make that my day to cut the podcast. So I try to, because we recorded on Tuesdays, then I try to just get it all done. And our podcasts, they've been ranging around an hour, and so I usually have to at least double that time, because I have to go back through it over and over. So it's about 2 hours it takes me to do that. So, but yeah, it's an 8-hour day normally, and then it'll just whatever StudioDork takes me that day.
So sometimes it could be like 12, 13 hours for us. Sometimes it could be that much, or even more sometimes.
Are you guys bringing in anybody else in the future?
Not yet, but we were thinking about maybe getting some interns or something. Right? We're thinking about that possibly.
We've been talking, just because we want more posts on the site. So we've been thinking about like maybe bringing in some people just to write, like basically outsource people to write.
Maybe, because Cameron's pretty much taking care of all the writing, and one person can only do so much. Plus, you also want to have a perspective. I'm gonna start helping him with the writing as well, but I'm like writing. I'm not really good with writing. That's not my strength. But I mean, I'm gonna do my best to figure that out. But also at the same time, we want to have like different people's opinions, different people's views, different people's perspective with the writing. Or if you have pretty much one person, even though that person's a pretty good writer, it might just be a little.
It makes the site seem a little too biased if I'm the only person writing. So yeah, we're probably gonna bring some people in just to do that.
Specifically about the writing part.
Yeah.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Strengths and weaknesses. What I mentioned for me, I'm not very good with writing or sometimes expressing my words. I have like a specific word in my head, like say I have the word dog, but I can't think of the way to pronounce it or the way to write it correctly, even though I have it in my head. So that's one of my weaknesses.
That has something to do with you being from a foreign country. So a lot of your early life is in Russia. So.
I guess, yeah, but yeah. So I'm originally from Russia, and I came when I was 7 years old. So. But then pretty much I've been in the country most of my life. But it's I guess it might have a little bit to do with it, but still I think I should be better than I am at that. Like I just try to dedicate all my stuff to design, and I should probably dedicate a little bit more to some grammatical stuff as well. But yeah, so that's a little weakness I have. I have a little bit of time, a little bit of issues, as we all as designers do, especially as we get older as people. Like sometimes taking critiques from people. Like as a kid, like when you're a little kid and people tell you something, you're like, whatever, you don't care. But as you get older, you start caring more about other people's opinions. And that's bad. We should just be able to take it. You know, you should just be able to take people's feedback and take what we want, the good stuff out of it, and even ignore some of the stuff, because, that person might not necessarily be right what they're talking about, but it's still good to hear their opinion. But that's something that I think a lot of designers have issues with, taking critiques from other people. And then my strengths, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with some of the design softwares. I'm pretty good with visually thinking about like layouts. I have a pretty good sense of layout. Pretty good with like pushing myself to a certain limit. I don't allow myself to just stop. Oh, this one's pretty good. I usually don't like to get to the pretty good level. I like to be somewhere above, like in a 10-star situation, above the 9-star. I try that. I don't always get there, but I try. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's I guess those are some of the things for me.
Yeah. And then as far as me, my weaknesses, I guess they're probably going to be. It'd probably just be, like, creatively, like, it's hard for me to turn on the creative spark sometimes, especially, like, someone just coming up to me in that 8-hour day just being, like, be creative. It's really kind of hard to do that sometimes. And also, like, it's a strength and a weakness is I have a reputation at my work now for being, like, really, really fast. I'm a really fast designer now, but sometimes it can be a weakness because I go so fast that the quality kind of drops. But the good thing about that is that I have an art director to tell me, like, this isn't good enough. I need you to work a little bit harder on it. But I mean, those are really the only weaknesses I can see, like, But I'm also a strength for me is like I'm really good at concepting. I like sitting around just basically talking out everything and coming up with concepts and just trying to get whoever I'm talking to super jazzed about whatever we're working on. So I think I'm pretty good at that. But those are probably my strengths and weaknesses at this point that I know of.
We sit around and concept and think about ideas all the time. We were thinking about recording them, but then we thought maybe like we don't want to record our concepts and have other people jack our ideas.
Yeah, we were trying to come up with an app yesterday. But
yeah, we're thinking about some app ideas for
developing an app for StudioDork or something.
Yeah, something for the iPhone and the iPad, or even the other whatever the other phones, but really primarily the iPhone. Love Apple products.
How'd you feel Jobs? Did you cry? I know you cried.
Did I cry? No, it was a sad moment. That's a very important person to both of us, because obviously half of our products here is all Apple products. We love good things. We love good products. So yeah, that sucks. But I mean, I heard that he's got like a bunch of different things already developed. He had it developed in advance, right?
Yeah, you can hear that on episode 3 of StudioDork podcast.
Yeah, check that out on episode 3 StudioDork podcast.
Yeah, I was pretty sad about it. It was weird because like I sit in a room with like 100 people, and like right when it happened, someone said it, and the whole room just got really like there was like a weird tension where everybody had this like weird feeling, like almost like he can't be dead. There's no way, But it was weird. Like I was sad initially, and then like the next day I felt this weight on my shoulders. I don't know. Like I almost feel like as a designer we should feel like a bigger weight because he did so much, and it was always if you couldn't figure it out, you knew Steve Jobs would do it, or at least Steve Jobs and the Apple team. But now with Steve Jobs not there, it just feels like more of the weight is on the designers as a whole, all the designers of the world.
Yeah, like it's our job to do the next stuff now. So basically, there'll be all this cool stuff that exists. You're like, oh, there can't be anything cooler. And then next year he comes out with all this way more cooler stuff. So there's always stuff being made that's better than stuff before. But now that he doesn't exist, now it's our job to continue.
Well, I mean, it's always been our job, but it just feels more of our job now because he's gone.
I wouldn't have a helper.
Yeah, we don't have the guy that would always do it if we couldn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I felt kind of sad, even though I'm not like an Apple fan, but it kind of hit me hard. Like I realized how big of a person influence he was, and actually he's like I felt like he was a really big influence to designers.
Yeah,
he was.
And it kind of hit me a little bit. I was like, wow, it's like a great person died, and who's gonna replace him?
Yeah. It's like one of those people you can't replace, really. You know what I mean? Like, there's someone that will come in and try to imitate, but it'll never actually be Steve Jobs.
No, and that's why it's like, it's crazy, dude, but oh well. We got StudioDork, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me see. Are you guys doing freelance too on the side, besides work, StudioDork, and freelance too?
Yeah, I have quite a few clients, actually, and I've had a few clients. So yeah, a bunch of different stuff, random stuff too, some website stuff. I've had some print stuff, more web stuff, a bunch of branding logos, then some other little things like business cards, but that's not really a big deal. But the branding and the logo stuff, I like that stuff.
Yeah,
a bunch of non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah.
I can't really talk about some of the stuff.
Yeah, I currently don't have any freelance clients, and I haven't really been seeking it too much just because I'm kind of getting the feel for balancing StudioDork and my work, because Gary has a little more of a flexible schedule where sometimes he can work on client stuff on like Thursday and Friday, or like his days off. Like he has a couple days off extra sometimes.
I do.
And so me, it's like I have to be at work those 8 hours, 40 hours a week or whatever, so it's a little bit harder to balance for me because I have to still do StudioDork as well. So.
How do you get freelance work? Do you go promote yourself, or they just call you, or?
Yeah, like different ways. A lot of people recommend you, so you do something for somebody, and then he recommends you to their friends. Also, a lot of things like dribble.com, that website, DRIBBBBLE.com. It's a pretty cool. Did I spell that right?
Yeah, it's 3 B's.
3 B's, not 2 or 3 B's.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get accepted on a Dribble is like it's kind of exclusive. So you basically you have to be drafted by someone that's on there already. So they most of the time, like I got drafted by Dribble, but you got drafted by a guy, right?
I got drafted by another designer. And I was very excited. I was so excited. Like,
yeah, he was working for him, and he worked for like so long. I think I got in just because I had StudioDork.com attached to my name, and they were just like, "Oh, he runs a website. Of course he's good." So, yeah, but.
So that's a very, very, very good website. So like some people have found me through there, for freelance stuff. Also just a bunch of different websites. Like you could just always like put yourself and just find people and just different things like that. A lot of recommendations from each other. People recommend.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know more about Dribble, you can always listen to episode 1 of StudioDork podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Gary on Dribble. How do I find Cameron on Dribble?
You probably just search me, Cameron Purchase.
Or just put purchase. He'll be like the 5th person when you put purchase.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I like
Spy.
that.
I guess Cameron never tried looking for himself, huh?
No, Gary does. He searches himself all the time. We were trying to find him on Twitter the other day because he was like, "Why am I not coming up on Twitter?"
Yeah,
so we were sitting there figuring it out.
Yeah, Twitter, like the way Twitter works is you only come up on there if you post recently, but if you haven't posted for a couple of days even, you don't come up on it anymore.
So describe the process when you're creating a job. Describe the process of what you do on a daily basis to complete a job. Did we go through that already?
We did a little bit, but I can maybe say it real quick. Just so you have a client, so you usually give them a design brief, and they fill that design brief with as much information as possible on things like their demographic and things like what they're actually trying to do and who their audience is and who their enemies are. Not their enemies, who their competition. Their competition is very important to look at competition. The people that you're going against and all that stuff. So you see that on the design brief, and then based on that, you start doing some concepts, and you show them the different concepts that you're doing, and then they see some of those and see if they're going the right direction, and you start digitizing it, and then you go from there. But yeah, it's a whole little and you try to force yourself to go through the process when you could. Yeah. Obviously, sometimes you have situations where you don't have that much time, or you only have like 5 minutes to do the project or whatever. Not 5 minutes, but a very short time. So you figure it out at that point. But if you have a little bit of time, you try to force yourself to go through the process. You try to open your sketchbook and do some sketches and sketch some thumbnailing and stuff out.
Yeah, you try to. I mean, like where I work, I do, like I said, more production work and smaller stuff. So it's like there isn't as much sketching. Sometimes I'll just hop right in with all the assets I have. And just like on banners and stuff, I work out all the layouts that don't work, and then I find the ones that do work. And then once I figure that out, then that kind of carries throughout the single property. And so then I can basically just resize the banner a bunch of different sizes. But when I do websites, I always will sit down and, like bigger stuff, you always want to sit down and sketch. Because you got to work through all their bad layouts or layouts that just aren't working.
Yeah.
And also in interface, you got to really work out how stuff's going to work, how the user is going to experience everything.
What do you recommend for the students right now that are ready to graduate or are in school? They're almost ready to graduate.
I recommend for them to almost not rest at all. As I was saying earlier, rest. But to just work as much as possible. Push yourself to the limit, because you're going to have all this competition around you, all these other people graduating and finishing. They're all going to be, competing against you. So you don't want them jacking your job. You want to show, look, I'm better than that guy. I can do the job better than them. So you want to. I mean, don't tell them that to their face.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to them is the first thing that I realized when I got into the current job that I work at. Everybody there is always trying to learn new things. Like, there's some Flash developers that I know, they just sit there and code like random things like an explosion or a small walk cycle or something that, like, one guy's building a gravity engine right now for no reason, just because he wanted to learn how to, like, code a gravity engine for Flash. So it's like, basically what I would just tell them is don't ever think that, like, you can't really shut off what we do. You kind of have to leave it on almost all the time, because you never know when you're going to run into something that you want to learn. And also, don't ever stop, like, learning, because, like, I still sit at work when I have downtime. I don't spend it looking at Facebook or being on Twitter or something. I mean, I leave Twitter up, but I don't really, like, focus on it. The thing that I try to do is I try to be on Lynda or on different things, trying to just learn new things. Like, I learned Flash for them in 1 month because they were giving me a lot of downtime, and so I just sat there and just worked in Flash. And so I would just say work really hard, and while you have the time, when you're not, like, working, like, you may be working 40 hours a week, but that, I mean, there's like 170 hours in the week, so maybe take the other 40, that other half of the week, and just put it into tutorials, whatever you can, you know, because this is the time right now for you to explore and really learn how to do a lot of stuff, because when you get into the work field, I got lucky because I got into a job that actually gives you the freedom to do that on the job, but some jobs won't. So it's always good to just try and really, really prepare for anything that they might throw at you.
Yeah, constantly be learning new things. Always force yourself to learn things. Like, I don't need to, it's cool, whatever. No, force yourself to learn at least one new thing per day. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard. There's a bunch of tutorials, there's a bunch of stuff that's already ready for you to learn. Even like 5 minutes or something, you go and you learn something. Just something new. If you think, oh, I don't really need this, yeah, you'll use it somehow. It will be used, it will be added to your bank.
Yeah, and also another thing I just thought of, you don't ever give up on a technology. There's when we were in school, I said, oh, I hate Flash. Flash is going out because Apple's not using Flash. And then I got a job doing Flash. So I would just tell you to never, just stick with everything and kind of keep your mind open to everything, because
the Flash is kind of going out.
It is going out. I mean, especially in my work, they've been asking for more HTML stuff, but still, like, there's a whole Flash department at my work.
For games, it's going to be more. It's going to be probably going more towards games. And stuff.
Yeah. Especially with, like, Chrome running games in HTML5 now. So
then you guys are, like, pretty much you're self-teaching yourself. Do you guys have anybody that, like, you get inspired by or helps you learn new things, or somebody you look up to that you really want to strive to be like? Or
well, for myself, I don't have not too much around, like, as physically, but a lot of the web stuff, like on Dribble, there's a bunch of people on there, a bunch of very, very talented people. So I usually follow those people and have maybe short communications with them, maybe via Twitter or something like that, but very, very small amounts. But usually just watching what they're doing and what they're working on.
Well, for me, I sit around lots of designers all the time. So when I was learning Flash, there's a whole Flash department at my work, like you said. So I'll just go over to one of the Flash developers that's not doing anything and just be like, hey, how do I do this? And they'll write me code, and then I'll just deconstruct the code or something like that. So, I mean, that's pretty much how I do a lot of learning. At home, we all use Dribble and all that stuff like that. And
we're always talking to each other about all the stuff. So we're always pushing each other. Like, one of us has an idea that's pretty crappy, and another person adds more to it, now it's less crappy, and you add more stuff, and it becomes pretty, like, fairly good. And so we're always talking about different ideas, and always thinking about stuff. Even if it's a bad idea, we always just, like, we always talk about, like, stuff all the time. That's something that pushes us a little bit. Why are you laughing, Pooh?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of those delirious nights we were concepting where it's like we throw out really crappy ideas and then we're just like, that's amazing.
No, we come out with some really good ideas sometimes during the delirious time.
Yeah, like last or the other night we were.
Yeah.
You know.
And then I forget about them because I don't write them. But yeah, sometimes, it's very important to write stuff down because you guys will forget stuff. You want to write stuff down always as much as possible. I do try to write stuff down. But I need to do it a little more myself.
Last time I went on Dribble, dude, and this happens to me every once in a while, where, like, I'm looking at other designers' work, and, like, I get overwhelmed. Sorry for the F-bomb, but I get overwhelmed, dude. I'm like, holy moly, you know, like, these guys are so good, and I'm, like, halfway there. Do you guys ever feel that way when you look at other people's work or other designers, where you feel like maybe you can't get up there, or you get overwhelmed, like, wow, you know, how can I get up there? Like,
well, the thing that's important to understand is that those designers weren't always good. You know, they practiced, they put the time into becoming that way. They weren't just born out of doing amazing interfaces. They put the time So you just have to think, have you put that amount of time yet that they put in to get to that level? You know, it just depends on that. And also another thing is that they might be really, really good at interface design or whatever that you're seeing that's good, but they might not be good at something else. You know what I'm saying? So like different people are good at other stuff, and it does get a little bit intimidating sometimes when you see like all this stuff that's really, really good, and you think like, oh, how am I gonna do that? It does get like that, but it's just important to keep that in mind and know that, you know, not everybody's good at everything. People are usually good at a few things, and that's good. You usually want to be good. You want to be really, really good at a few things, but be pretty good at a bunch of other stuff. But you really want to be really, really good at only a few things, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I keep going back to my job, but it's just because when I got there, I felt like such a little kid compared to all these like grown-ups, basically, because all these people they were all doing like amazing work. And so one of my first projects they had me do was I was working on some banner for something, and I didn't know how to do. I'd never really designed a button. It sounds really dumb, but when we were in school, we never really designed buttons. It was mostly like print stuff. There wasn't a lot of interface stuff, and they were like, "Well, design that. It needs to look more interactive." So I went through a bunch of their files, and I found a bunch of their buttons, and I figured out how they did it. And then, so I would tell you that if you feel overwhelmed and you don't think that you can get to their level, there's a lot of sites like what's that one? Premium Pixel.
Premium
You
Pixel's
found
a good
this
one.
guy,
Yeah.
run by Orman Clark. He's on Dribble as well.
Remember his name?
Yes, I remember his name. You remember good people because it's respectful.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but I forget Michael Jordan's name. I'm bad with remembering names.
You can't remember. Okay. But anyways, you can go on. There's a premiumpixel.com. If you go on there, he'll design like a button or something, and then he'll put it up there, and he'll give you the PSD, and you can go through and deconstruct how he does it. I learned so much from doing that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea actually. What he means by that, for example, you actually open up the Photoshop file. Let's say it's a PSD file. You open up the Photoshop file and you see all the layers and how he has everything layered and the effects that he's got added. Like if it's an little mini subtle inner shadow or what he has behind it, like some kind of little glow, and how he's doing that. So that's what he means by deconstructing. You open it up and you see all of this stuff added to make certain effects happen and for certain things to possibly pop.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate that word pop.
Yeah, I hate it too, but it's cool.
Edit that out, yeah?
Yeah. Well, don't worry. No, one of the things though, especially like because layer effects are hard to see a lot of the time, so you can actually copy layer effects. And what I started out doing was I would just make like a big object, and I would just copy layer effects to it, just to see what the layer effect was actually doing. Some of them are so subtle you can't tell. And so that's something just when you're deconstructing whatever they're doing. But Premium Pixel, I highly recommend that site, you know.
That guy, he's a professional, and he builds I think he builds WordPress themes. That's like one of his specialties.
That's one of his things he does. He does a lot of interface.
A lot of interface stuff, and he's just really, really, really talented designer.
Yeah. Hey guys, it's Cameron. That's basically where the interview ended. I just realized that we didn't do any sign-offs or anything, and Gary already went to sleep, so I decided that I was just going to record something real quick. We basically just wanted to thank Martin for interviewing us, and we also wanted to give you guys a place to contact us if you liked this or you didn't like this. So feel free to contact us. You can find us on Twitter at StudioDork, or you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StudioDork, or you can also find us on StudioDork.com, obviously. You can go on there and contact us on our contact section of our page. Thanks for listening, and stay dorky.